you ever heard of a disturbing true neighbor horror story? Do you have disturbing neighbors around your hood? Have you ever lived among people who have no regard for serenity and human dignity? Well, join us as we expose some disturbing characters in our neighborhood. Story 1. The Strange Neighbor. I have 2 kids, twins called Ernestine and Ernest. They are 6 years old and very adorable. Everyone wants to be friends with them, even at school, because their teachers love them. Years back, we were living in an old, fabulous house, but some things happened, and we relocated to this fishy neighborhood. At first, everything was normal, and my wife and I planned on staying there for a very long time, until we got the grand breakthrough we were aiming for. My kids also love this neighborhood because they have nice friends that they always get along with and can play freely with them even when we are not at home. There is no fear of harm coming to them while we are away. To me, this was a perfect neighborhood, or so I thought. After a while, I noticed my Haven Abode neighborhood was dwindling and changing. Not really for good, but I decided to be calm about it, thinking I was just being overly concerned for my peaceful neighborhood. But still, instincts tell me that something is not right. Over time, some of my neighbors moved to another neighborhood, including friends and playmates of my twins. At this juncture, I became apprehensive and not too comfortable with my neighborhood. To me, it is losing the taste of life I once knew and had, all the same as we continued living there. One cool evening, I decided to look around my neighborhood just out of inspection, while my twins and my wife were watching some movies inside the house. Although I have been wanting to do this, I'm kind of too busy to engage in some things men do in their neighborhood. Opposite my apartment is a big building that is being occupied by just one occupant, and I usually wonder how he copes with the lonely and quiet edifice, which may even be too large for 10 occupants, without security personnel and domestic workers. Although I once tried to introduce myself to him, he's not much of an entertainer, and his English is not too good, so I let him be. I think he prefers his distance, and I deserve that for looking for friendship where there's none. Today for me is quite different because I am willing to tour my neighborhood, and I am starting from my immediate environment opposite my house. Mr. Green, as I later discovered in the course of my investigation, is the name of my immediate neighbor. He was shocked and seemed puzzled upon seeing me entering his building. He quickly said, "Ho," like he wanted to say hi. Of course, I understood his communication in English, but on a day like this, it didn't matter to me because I had the time. I proceeded further with smiles and stretched out my hand for a handshake, which he reluctantly gave. I looked around for a seat and beckoned him to get me one. He fussed here and there, murmuring something like "Basie" for busy. I took the challenge and said, "I have the time," and grinned. Before he could get me a seat, I decided to nose around the big edifice that beats my imagination, but I was stopped halfway by the moaning coming out of the window of a particular room. I tried to continue my curiosity journey, but I remembered the security tip training I had in my office, which told us never to bypass any sound of pain, not minding where it is coming from. I thought to myself, is Mr. Green's in pain? What is delaying him from getting me a seat? I wondered. Then I quietly went closer to peep into any hole in this particular window, which is always closed without light on even at night. At this point, it seems there was a struggle, like somebody's mouth is being tied and he's struggling with it, a female's voice to be precise. Unknown to me, he brought the seat and took it back, thinking I could no longer wait, and so went back to his mission. I could also sense the presence of cameras in the house, and I wondered why. Is he a terrorist, politician, or something? Alas, he may have spotted my movement in the cameras, and that means trouble for me. But I can't back out without seeing who and what is going on inside. I saw a balcony, and decided to tiptoe on the walls carefully, and was able to enter that particular room. Again, I wondered where he had gone because I couldn't spot him anywhere. I entered this room and found a young girl tied up who looked at me with fear in her eyes, not for herself but for me, and she was trying to say something to me in a hasty manner, but I failed to copy because I was so touched by her plight. I thought for a moment she could be my daughter. Before I could obey my instinct to turn around for a moment, I felt a sharp pain in my head that almost sent me sprawling on the hard but slippery floor of the room. But I was still very strong not to allow myself to be totally defeated. Before he could shut the door to stop me from coming out alive, I swayed him around and ran out, gasping for air and bleeding terribly. On my way out, I could also hear the sound of another female shouting for attention, thinking rescue had come. This time the gate had been shut, and I had to do something fast about the gate before he was through taming the girl wailing loudly. But on hearing the police siren, I screamed, "Over here," not knowing if Mr. Green had just reported me for trespassing. All the same, it is better to be sued for trespassing than to be in this edifice hell of a building. I was wrong. I didn't know I was gone for more than 5 hours, and it was dark already. Moreover, my twins spotted me entering what they called the spooky house with the unfriendly neighbor. After waiting for hours and no response, my fearful wife called the cops and declared me lost in a big strange edifice. Mr. Greens came out with a gun and a rope, but ran back inside having heard the siren too. Thus the cops came with their wild trained dog that had been roaming the edifice. Immediately the police came. They were able to trace Mr. Green's hideout. It was later discovered that Mr. Green is a human trafficker, and the girls in his hostage were children of some of the people that once lived in this neighborhood. Their children were missing, but could not be traced to that building in any way. It was discovered that his real name is Gretchen, and he usually changes his name when he gets to a new neighborhood. What a day and what a neighborhood. I have to move out of this house immediately. Children should not grow up in such a neighborhood. Moreover, I need a change of environment to erase this ugly memory from my head. Story 2. Predators in the guise of protectors. A few months ago, I moved into an apartment with 2 other couples who were really nice. Even though I wasn't married, they were not uneasy with me, and it was cool and cozy. Even though I was unmarried, they shared their marriage stuff with me, and this made me shy. My neighborhood is a blend of characters, but it never bothered me because my immediate neighbors are cool. The love between me and my direct neighbors makes me want to come back home whenever I go out. They often warn me to stay out of trouble within the neighborhood, and if I notice a weird behavior from anyone, I should just walk away and call the local vigilante in our neighborhood, or call them to do it for me. They gave me some numbers in case they are out of town and there is an emergency. One day they embarked on a journey for their marriage anniversary, and I was alone for some days in our apartment. From the night of the first day they traveled, there was this noise that was always coming from the opposite apartment, but I decided not to interfere just as I was warned. In this neighborhood, interference is an offense, and you might go in for it without knowing the sound is actually from my window. However, when I wake up in the morning and dress to go out, I often hear the sound of a group of people running away hurriedly. One night I decided not to sleep, but to go to a separate room where I could observe any activity going on without being seen, just to observe this particular window where the noise is always coming from. To my dismay and disgust, I saw men in their late 50s whom I was able to recognize as the elite and honorable of my neighborhood. They are the most respected men in my neighborhood, and some of them are the local vigilantes I was told to call when in danger, including some women in their midst. They were sniffing drugs and drinking alcohol near my window. I wondered why my window, but I kept watching them amidst sleepy eyes, and behold, one of them in his vigilante uniform was drunk and was trying to open my window with a tool, but could not. I heard them laughing at him, saying, "You fail again. You can never get her." This time my boldness was fading, and fear crept in. Moreover, I didn't come to this room with my phone, even if I had the phone with me. Who will I call? Is it the same vigilante that is here trying to exploit me? I was confused and did not know what to do. After several futile attempts, one of them received a distress call. It could be another victim by one of them, I thought, and they all laughed hoarsely and left. What a relief, I murmured. I prayed that they wouldn't ever come back. I quietly crept to my room, anxious for dawn so I could find my bearings. These men are philanderers and outlaws. At day, they are seen as saviors and honorable men. In fact, my neighborhood is in their hands, but at night, they are predators looking for prey, and those they pretend to guide in the day are their prey at night. How am I going to convince my amiable couple that the people they trust are actually the predators of this neighborhood? I think I will just drop a note and try to convince them to leave now that they have the time before things get out of hand, but I will miss them so much. Do you love scary stories? Check out our previous video.